Hey fashionistas, welcome back to So Style Slay. Today we'll be wrapping up this wedding series with part 3 of making a luxury wedding dress. I hope you guys have caught up with part 1 and 2 on my YouTube channel. Just search Couture Shans on YouTube, head to the playlist, look for my sewing playlist, and you'll see all the sewing videos, pattern making tutorials, everything you need for this project. So yes, last we were completing our bustier. We went ahead and added our yoke, which is made of mesh, and I placed it on my dress form just so you guys could see, how it fleshed out and how it was coming along. I actually love the results so far. Let me know in the comments if you do too. And we'll be moving on to basically prepping our gems for this project, guys. As I said, it is a luxury wedding dress and this is just looking so simple right now, so let's just jazz it up with our gems. So if you take a look at the back, we're not going to leave out the back at all. We'll be definitely adding some gems and some other appliques to the back. Super excited for this final part. Bittersweet, but guys, the results are so amazing and I can't wait for you to see. So leave a comment down below and let me know if you're excited too. So for this project, we'll be using some diamond encrusted applique, which we purchased on Amazon. I'll be sure to leave a link down below if you guys are interested in purchasing this piece. And I am just zooming in so you guys can see the gorgeousness that is this piece. And let me tell you, it was well made, and I applaud the manufacturers because I've used appliques before that were so flimsy and the quality was just so poor. So I'm loving the quality on this one. I'm then going to take my soldering gun and I'm going to basically cut away the mesh because the mesh is white and I am using a skin tone mesh and it would definitely clash. Also note that we have moved over to a wooden surface because when using your soldering gun you want to stay away from any type of paper, cloth, plastic surfaces. So this is what I'm doing here, and I've cut all the way around this piece of mesh here just so I can separate the applique. And I'm just going to continue soldering as close as possible until I get my desired results. Okay, let's take a closer look. As you can see, the white mesh is still a bit visible, but for now I'm going to leave it like this, and then I'm going to go back in later and solder it much closer. So for the first piece of applique, I wanted to separate it into two pieces. So what I did was take some super glue and glue down the gems where I would be cutting, and then I'm going to take my scissors and snip through this. We're creating two pieces because we'll be putting these gems on the sleeves, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the sleeves here and do some placement to see how I'd like it to lay. So I am still on my wooden surface here, but hopefully you can still see the skin tone mesh, and I'm taking my gems and I'm just placing them.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall. Praying that this night's gonna last. You got it all on tap, I'm loving your vibe, always have your back. We like all the same tracks, listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast, don't remember life before you, that's facts. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
Opinion, and basically ensure that the end result is actually, satisfactory. So this was the final placement that we went ahead and decided on. As you can see, it sits closer to the wrist as per the desires of the bride, and I definitely love how it looks. So I'm going back in with my soldering gun here, and I'm being very precise this time around, going as close as possible. And the end result would be basically the removal of all of this white mesh, so that when we place it on the skin tone mesh, it will be nearly invisible, which is what we want at the end of the day. Next, we're moving on to stitching or applique in place. So I'm taking a pack of embroidery needle and some invisible thread here. And point to note is that the embroidery needle is basically longer than regular needles, and so it will be much easier to sew with. Another option is the use of hair needles. I've seen tutorials where hair needles were used because of that curved shape. It does allow for some flexibility and ease of sewing, as well as saves time, I guess. But yes, I'm using the invisible thread here so it won't be as obvious when I am sewing my applique onto the sleeves. And guys, this thread was so hard to use. I mean, I've used it before, but never with hand sewing. I've used it on my sewing machine and it was never this complex, but this time around, listen me, you have to thread your needles super short so that it doesn't tangle, and this was a task in itself. As you can see, I'm just starting at the bottom here, and I'm basically being super patient. At this point, I think the needle was just not going through the mesh, but I'm just being super careful, super gentle, and I'm just trying to avoid the thread snagging or attaching to any of the gems, which happened multiple times. But the process, while lengthy, was fulfilling in the end, because I mean, labor is sweetened by motivation, and I was just so excited to see how the dress would turn out. So I tried to put myself in a good mood, put on some music. As you can see, I have my laptop here, and I mean, if you're doing this, just set aside some time, because this took me hours to do. But once you're patient, just take your time and gently hand sew this, all will work out well. So that's what I'm doing here. And a trick is to basically hold the thread with one hand and then pull it through with the other so it does not get a chance to tangle. So the technique I'm using for this portion of the project is to basically sew around the perimeter of the applique, gently going up and down each strip or each line of gems. And after I'm done, then I'll reinforce the center and any loose ends that I have not yet sewn.
Feels
So I am finally done sewing on my applique to my sleeves, and I'm just loving how it looks. Look how it blends perfectly with our mesh, and you can barely even tell that this was an applique to begin with. So guys, this did take some time, but as I said, patience is the order of the day, and I am absolutely loving how the end result turned out. So I'm just going to take my pins here, and I'm going to indicate the sides of my sleeve, which I'll be placing at the front, basically differentiating the front of the sleeve from the back of the sleeve. If you caught my sleeve pattern tutorial on my channel, on my sewing playlist, you will notice that there is a big difference between the front and the back of the sleeve, and this is important when assembling your pieces. So I'm then going to take my bustier portion, which has the yoke already in place from part 2 of the wedding series, and I am going to now prepare my sleeve to basically attach to the bodice. So I first found the center of my sleeve by folding it in half and placing a pin to indicate that center point. I'm then going to place this point on my shoulder seam and use the pin to hold it in place. I'm then going to attach both ends of my sleeve and back bodice here, because this is the back portion that we're working on. And I'm just going to use my pins to place all around the edges. So in order to ensure that our sleeve fits perfectly, we are then going to apply the easing method by basically gently stretching both fabric and basically ensuring that it matches perfectly and it is eased in as comfortably and neatly as possible. The use of pins in this process is super important because it does keep everything in place. It keeps your mesh from sliding and slipping, and it also ensures that once you're sewing, everything is evenly distributed and basically in place, and basically ensures a nice fitting and nice finish to your garments. So definitely try this method of pinning the outsides and the center first, and then easing in the rest of the sleeve. So this is how it is looking, and I'm going to work on the front portion now. So I am doing the same thing, pinning at the ends first, easing in the sleeve into the armhole, and basically pinning as per usual. So once you're done pinning, this is how it will look. I'm going to then turn it on the right side, and as you can see, the sleeve fits perfectly into the bodice or the bustier top, and if this was my skin tone, it would definitely be undetectable. So now we're going to move on to doing the same, and we're going to just pin as well to the other side of our top, basically easing as we go along, and then we're heading over to our serger. So while sewing the bodice pieces together on my sewing machine, I realized that the thread was a bit tight, and so I opted to use the serger instead when I am joining mesh. I realized that my tension was a bit off, so if you're experiencing this on your sewing machine where your threads are a bit tight, you can basically reduce your tension and hopefully the problem will be resolved. So I opted for the serger here, and with the serger you have to be super duper careful here because we do not want to miss any portion of the mesh whatsoever. So I'm ensuring that both layers are together, both layers are in place, and both layers are actually caught in my threading needle. So I'm being very gentle here, being very patient, and I'm just easing it through my serger, ensuring that both layers are serged together perfectly, and basically doing this all the way around. So just follow what I'm doing here, and as you can see, the threads, while a bit dark, I think they will blend in the end, but these threads were actually the same color of the mesh as you can see at the back of my serger here. But I guess once they were all together, it did come off a bit dark, but that's the least in this project. Like guys, there are so many different issues that I came upon while making this dress, but They say nothing is perfect, but you know, it's just a learning process, because as I said, this is also my first wedding dress. So I'm just gently serging my sleeve into place, and once I'm done, I'll show you guys the end result. So this is how it is looking after we've serged it together, and I am loving the results. Here you can see me assessing if all was well and if everything was in place, and it was. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this on the other side. So now that we have the cap of our sleeve attached to our bodice or our bustier, we're then going to go ahead and close up the sleeve. So for this project, we'll be using stretch mesh, and I'd prefer to have the ends raw for the wrist area. So I'm just going to take this to my serger once more, but I'm going to ensure that I pin this together again, and basically pinning down the length of the sleeve on the right side. Ensure that you have right sides together and that you're not stretching the fabric when pinning. So I'm going to do this along the entire length, and then I'm going to match up the underarm seams and continue placing pins as we go along. So this is the tricky part. We want to ensure that the underarm matches perfectly, because who doesn't like a perfectly finished garment? I've had instances where this was skewed, but a simple fix is to basically place it on top of each other and then place a reinforcing stitch that will basically ease it in place. I say basically a lot. So yes, once we've pinned our sleeve, we're then going to go ahead and pin down the sides of our bustier as well, and then we're going to take it to the serger and serge all the way down. So a little trick that I do once I'm done serging is to basically pull on my thread tails to tighten them and basically reinforce that stitch, and then I use my scissors to cut off the ends. So I'm then going back to my wrist portion and I'm doing the same, basically snipping my thread tails and pulling on them. So you can pull as tight as possible to basically ensure that it stays in place. You know, it is serged, so you have that extra security. Sometimes I may add a knot, but it all depends on your preference. So next we're going to go ahead and pin down the sides of our bustier, and then we're going to take this to the serger and serge all the way down. I've gone ahead and switched out my threads from the skin tone brown to white because we'll now be working on the main fabric. So I'm just going to serge down the edges starting from the bottom of my bodice and working my way up to the underarm portion. So with that done, we're going to move on to attaching our bodice to our mermaid skirt. You can find the 6-panel mermaid skirt tutorial on my YouTube channel in the same sewing playlist. I'll leave a card up top so you guys can find it easily. So we're going to take our skirt portion and we're going to find the center by folding it in half and placing a pin to mark that center point. We're then going to take our bustier top and do the same, fold it in half and place a pin at the front to indicate where our center is. Or you can even line up our princess seams, which is much easier to do, and basically straighten it out to find that center point as well. So after we've done this, we're going to place the bodice or the bustier. I use them interchangeably, guys. So if you hear me saying bodice or bustier, I'm referring to the same top portion of our dress. And we're just going to place it on top of our skirt, firstly at the center, then at the sides, and work our way inwards. So we're going to open up all our seams so that they lay flat, and we're just going to place them together and then find the corresponding seam on our skirt and place a pin to hold it together. So we're just going to do this all the way around, same technique, and ensure that the seams line up perfectly, because we do want to have a uniform, somewhat standard line going down our dress when we're sewing it. Guys, pinning itself is an art on its own, and while it may be tedious, it is definitely needed. As you can also see here, the zipper is already installed on our mermaid skirt. If you guys would like a in-depth tutorial of how to install a zipper, a regular zipper or an invisible zipper, please leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to do a dedicated video on this. So here you can see me prepping the bodice to basically insert before we go ahead and place it together. So I am going to take this to my serger and I'm just serging both pieces or both sections, the top and bottom, to create our dress. I'm gently removing the pins as I go along because I do not want to serge over these pins, because listen, if these pins get caught in your serger, like, you won't have a good day. So just to avoid that, just gently remove your pins. Always remember to remove them as you go along, and basically, you know, rearrange your fabric to remove any puckers, to ensure that everything is lined up properly, and take your time and serge all the way around. So once you're done serging, you're going to grab your scissors and trim away any extra fabric that remains, or trim away your thread tails, pull on them to tighten, just some finishing touches before we move along. So we're moving along to our button and our buttonholes. Here you could see me making some pre-made loops. I think I lost the footage of where I actually made the loops, but listen, this was a task in itself. So we're just moving on, guys. If you need more details on how to make these loops, I'm always down to share, but if you can purchase them, that would be better for you. So I did go ahead and purchase some buttons which sort of look like beads. So yeah, they do actually resemble pearls, so I guess I can call these some pearl buttons that are actually used in wedding dress making. So these pearls were the perfect addition to this dress, and I'm just going to take them and line them up with where the buttons align, and then I'm going to take my needle and thread and hand sew them down. So all I'm doing here is just threading the buttons and then reinforcing this. I think I went through about 5 or 6 times just to ensure that it is, you know, hunkered down perfectly. And I'm just going to do this. I think I added about 6 buttons at the back of the dress, and they ended up looking so gorgeous. Even the loops looked so beautiful, considering that I made them myself, but I could not find the ready-made loops for the back of the dress, so I just went ahead and purchased some elastic and made them. So it was elastic cording, I think. So yeah, this is me just hand sewing the buttons down and basically checking to see if it aligns properly, if the holes actually fit perfectly over the button, and as you can see, it does. And my seams are actually lining up pretty well, so I'm pretty pleased at this point. So I'm just going to continue doing that until all my buttons are complete. At this point, we are finally done with the sewing portion for now, and I'm just going ahead and placing the dress on my dress form to place the final piece of applique on the top portion of my dress. So as I mentioned earlier, we did purchase 2 sets of appliques, one that we split in half for the sleeves and then another one which we'll be placing at the bodice. So here I'm just doing a little rough placement to see how I'd like it to sit on the bodice. So I'm just using some pins and I'm just going in, tacking that. Ensure that you find the center of your bodice and align it with the center of your applique. So once this is done, I am just double checking using my tape measure to ensure that I actually have the true center point, and then I'm just going to find the center of the applique and I'm just going to use a pin to place right at that point. So once you've centered it, all should be well, and from this point onwards your applique should be even on both sides. It should lay perfectly and you shouldn't have any issues sewing it down. So yes, this is what I did, and I'm just going to continue pinning until I am pleased with the placement. And then I am going to take my needle and thread and I'm just doing some hand sewing here. And as usual, my technique is to work around the perimeters first and then go in. So the technique I employed was to use a sheet of white paper to place under my dress. So I'm placing it between the mesh portion so it is much easier to see. And it also acts as a barrier between my dress form and the mesh as well, so I avoid actually stitching down on my dress form. So this is a perfect hack to use when you're sewing on your dress form or when you're sewing mesh or any other type of see-through fabric. So I may be blocking you a bit, but this is just me continuing to sew all the way around, and this took me some time as well, but this is how it is looking after I finished pinning. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm loving the progress, and I'm just going to spend the rest of the day here watching videos and complete the sewing process. So I'm going to speed this portion up and add some music so you guys can find it a bit more enjoyable. Also, for this portion, I am still using my super long embroidery thread, which came in so handy because if I were to use a regular needle, that is my embroidery needle, sorry, if I were to use a regular needle, like, it was so hard to actually pull through the fabric and the applique at once. So be sure to purchase these extra long embroidery needles as well as the invisible thread. And this is a nylon thread as well, so it is super strong and it will definitely hold these gems in place because these gems were heavy. So I'm just going to continue sewing and then I'll come back and show you the final results. So before I reveal the dress, I just wanted to show you guys a close-up of the technique for the beading up top. So I'm basically creating loops around each line of beads or each line of gems and basically pulling my thread to tighten, not too much because the fabric is so delicate, but I'm basically doing this along each line. So I have my pins in place, so everything is in place, I just need to pin it down and the process continues. So this was a little fitting that I did with my bride, and as you can see, the gems are on and it's looking super gorgeous, guys. I can't wait for you guys to see the end result when she has on her veil. But this is the dress and it's now time for the reveal.
Oh, I can't believe it's true. Sometimes I get to love you.
I am absolutely in love with the results and I hope you guys loved it too. Thank you so much again for watching this wedding dress series. I hope you guys leave a comment down below. Tell me how you feel. Rate my dress out of 10. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more sewing videos.